an almanac, a collection of sayings, pithy. That's not my list. Pithy sayings that people had made, and he put them together, and they were going through comparing them, and there were some beauties there, in like, why are the Beatles passing away in the wrong order and things like that. But my very favourite, and I've been trying to work it into a lecture ever since, and haven't been able to, but I think tonight I can. The saying was, "War is God's way of teaching Americans geography." But you made me think of that. You might remember that tonight. So basically, folks, the floor is yours to interrogate art with gusto and vigour. Thank you.
What? Well, that's pretty underwhelming.
One at a time.
Oh, there's a guy. I'm not going to hear him, so.
You'll hear me. How do you propose we teach students to deal with the problem of having to choose between a ship party and another ship party?
Sorry, I missed the last part.
I could fill you in.
How do you propose we teach students to overcome the problem of having to choose between two bad choices in democracy?
Too bad.
How do you teach them?
The students to overcome the problem of choosing between two bad choices. Two bad choices.
Well,
It's too bad.
we got to get to a point where that's not the only thing, our choices we have. When we have choice, I'm going to vote for Obama. I think he's a terrible president. But when I compare him to the Republicans are putting up, I have no choice. I got to vote for him. I remember Dawn Vincent, and when I was here last time, asked me, because we had done a lot of work with Aboriginal, Frank Vincent, asked me, wasn't I pleased to have a black president? And I said, he's only half black, and we voted, and we elected the white half. But I'm going to vote for it. What I'm trying to get here today is to say, we got to stop being in a situation when that's our only choice. And the way we start with, we start now to put ourselves in a situation that we don't have that, only which is the lesser of evil choices. We begin to start promoting and doing those things that make it possible to get people to move forward. And part of it, which I didn't say, and I think I should have said, the other part of a democracy is vision. It's seeing the world as good as it can be. Richard Rorty, who now deceased, but was considered one of the more important liberal thinkers, said much the same thing. We've got to get students to envision a world as good as it can be. Envision a classroom as good as it can be. Envision a community as good as it can be. Because a democracy is impossible. We're never going to get democracy, but we can think of democracy as mathematicians think of infinity. We're not going to get there, but our job is to get as close as possible. But the more we have a vision, we know whether we're making progress. With the absence of vision, we don't know if we're making progress, and we delude ourselves saying, we must be doing good because we feel good about what we're doing. That's not good enough. So, the answer to your question is, we got to get to a place where that's not happening. And the more you get kids involved in creating projects of their own and doing things on their own and seeing things and change, the quicker we'll get to a point where we're not making those kinds of choices. Yeah?
Do democracy and empowerment go hand in hand? To what point that they have to be separated?
Well, democratic empowerment is all people bringing informed proposals and debating those. What the essence of the debate is coming out with the consensus that this is the one where we can move the fastest toward a better world. But in the absence of that kind of debate, in the absence of people bringing logic and evidence into the argument, we're not going to have that. So that's why it's important that people know that if they're going to make a proposal, they got to back it up with something. And there's a very important but not recognized democratic theorist that operated at the turn of the century called Mary Parker Follett. And Mary Parker Follett really believed that democracy works when small groups of people interpenetrated each other's minds, and that out of that came a consensus of understanding. And then she saw democracy, and I think that's right, is the linking and the federating of small groups so that ultimately everybody is a meaningful participant, but it doesn't get overwhelmed by size and numbers. So all democracy starts with small groups, and then we have to be able to see how they can connect with other small groups. But nothing, it's not linear. It picks up speed. But right now, all the motion is going in the opposite direction, and that's picking up speed. And that's why I think we're in a very, very difficult period, and we need to be serious about what it's going to do to get us out of it. Nothing magic. There's not going to be some wonderful magical figure that's going to come up and save us. California tried that, but Schwarzenegger turned out not being able to do that. And if he couldn't do it, how do you expect anybody else? How do you expect Tony Abbott to?
Do you know anything about Australian politics and
Do you know anything about Australian
the Green Party
politics?
represented?
Uh-oh.
Do you know anything about Australian politics, and what do you think the Green Party represents?
I know very little about Australian politics, as they keep telling me. David keeps telling me. I don't know much about American politics. But I know as much as anybody does. What do I think of who?
The Greens.
Green.
The Green Party.
Well, I think the Green Party needs to go out there and be able to, I mean, ultimately, you're in politics, you have to have a winning number. And if you only get stuck at 12%, you're not going to win. So you're going to have to start thinking about how do we expand that support. And in that, the Green Party is going to have a very strong economic set of proposals. Because there is no green movement without economics. Now, there are a few economists, green economists, that people should know about. One is a man called Max Neef, and the other one is Herman Daly. But both of them tell you that there is no green economics without a democratic politics. And so if the Green Party wants to succeed in Australia or in the United States it's more difficult because winner takes all, and here you have ways of being able to get minority parties to have some representation. But if it wants to be serious, it has to be able to have a strategy to get majority of the people on its side. And it needs to have the kind of discussion, reaching out to others, that has that kind of discussion to make it happen. In the United States, for a short period of time, Greens were beginning to win a lot of elections in local government. And it looked like it was on the ascendancy. But in the United States, there just hasn't been enough political conversation. There's a man named Putnam talks about bowling alone, which basically means that there hasn't been any kind of civic engagement. People don't talk about anything in the United States. Well, that's not true. They don't talk about anything that has political significance. They talk about sports. They talk about the American Idol. They talk about everything that other than what they should be talking about. Yeah.
So given that young people are excluded from most spaces where decisions are made,
Can you
can you
talk?
hear me?
I'm closer to you, I could hear
Okay.
you.
Given that young people are excluded from most decision-making forums, what do you think is the potential of the internet, given that young people are generally sort of media savvy, to open up new civic spaces that might have some potential for democracy in undemocratic places like schools and universities?
I think the internet has a great potential, but it needs to be, much more thought has to go into how that's being done. And there's no question that the politics of tomorrow will have that will be an important element of it. It won't totally replace the kinds of things that need to be done in small face-to-face gatherings, but it will be a very significant, if we do bring about changes, that will be a very significant part, and we've got to start thinking about ways in which we can do that, and begin even to become part of it. Obama did an amazing job in 2008 of getting young people involved basically through the internet. And for the first time in the United States in 40 years, young people were excited about politics. He's having a lot of trouble in 2012 rekindling that spirit. But that doesn't mean that that isn't what needs to be done. And I'm teaching, actually, I'm teaching the course right now, and I'm in contact with my students by email at the university. But I also work in a 5th grade class in a disadvantaged school, and one of the students asked me, she knew what I was teaching, what was I teaching at the university? And I said, I was teaching about democracy. And she said, oh, the same thing you're teaching us. And so we're beginning to get that discussion in the 5th grade with kids sitting around and talking about issues and discussing them. And so it's possible. But it's silly not to consider technology as part of a systematic way of bringing about change. It's necessary. We just got to learn how to do it better. First, we have to learn how to do it, and then learn how to do it better.
It's often said in universities that the only thing that will get academics and teachers politically active is a threat to their car park or their office.
Yeah, well,
how do we teach?
Essentially, that's what the president of the university said, that the university want parking, the students want sex, and the alumni wants football.
How do we teach the teachers? I work at a university which shouldn't be named, but is actually RMIT, where my school has banned the use of group email because it might encourage politics. We've had a senior staff group that said we must ban the meetings that unions want to have, and that's in a state where we've actually, because of Lynn Kosky's government, we've got a Charter of Human Rights. Thank God for that.
Anybody knows anything about me, as soon as they told me I can't do it, I do it.
Right. But you get the problem we've got, that university
and then
teachers...
I defied them to fire me. You've got to understand, at the University of Oregon, I had a class of 2,500 students. It was pretty hard to fire me. Considering that in that class were the wives of the 3 Republican legislators.
How do we teach the teachers to do the job? Because that's where the problem, I think, at this point in this country is starting.
The only thing I can answer that is we keep trying. To me, the only answer to resistance is persistence with a little humor. Humor is probably the single most important mucilage to bringing about democracy. There can be no humorless democracy. And so humor is the way that you keep things going. I try to do that. Maybe not successfully, but I tried. Tough crowd.
In your summary, you talked about informed and active participants in society. How did we get to the point where values and the idea of doing the thing that's right get blurred amongst democracy and capitalism?
Sorry.
I didn't get any of those words. So you're
I was
gonna-
relying on Roger to remember it.
Well, I have to fess up that I'm a little deaf.
If he's a little deaf, I'm a lot deaf.
And I was having trouble. Can you just... Big voice. Thank you.
How did we get to the point where the boundary between democracy and doing something that's right and values that I think are important in society get blurred with capitalism and chasing our tails around, chasing the dollar?
The blurring of that. This is paraphrasing. Excellence. The blurring of values through capitalism.
Well, I mean, essentially, people have to understand democracy is a secular religion. And it begins to affirm the values of a good society. And so it unblurs the values. And that's an important part of the discussion. The important part of the discussion is the whole discussion that involves honesty, integrity, equality, reaching out, meaningful participation. It's in those discussions we reaffirm the kind of values that are not only being obscured by capitalism, but even more obscured by the new fundamentalism of religion that's attempting to impose its values on a larger society. And it's going to be a struggle. I mean, the struggle for the future is a struggle over values. And the capitalist value of today is just maximizing profit and to hell with everything else. I mean, why are apples made in China? Not because we feel guilt with how bad the Chinese government is, one of the stupider articles in the Age. And being able to discriminate, to say which is more stupid is sometimes difficult. But why? And that's a value. The value is because we can make more money. And that's the only value they have. The democracy begins to talk about the values of human beings, the values of making people live quality lives, what quality life looks like, and they become part of the discussion and the development of those kinds of visions. The more we begin to have those conversations, the less effective. Remember, all now is being done in terms of politics, certainly in the United States, and I think somewhat true here, is that you're going to spend over $1 billion trying to be able to marshal ignorance and bigotry. To the extent the voter is neither ignorant or bigoted, that doesn't work. And so our job is to make sure that the voter isn't ignorant or bigoted. And that's what democracy is in the business of doing. And that comes about just as we talk more and more with people and exchange ideas. We become less vulnerable to the kind of propaganda efforts to just... And if you're going to watch the dirtiest political campaign, not only is the most expensive political campaign, but the dirtiest in our history, you watch all the kind of things as people attack each other, and there's no talking about any kind of policy issue, any kind of value issues. They're attacking people on their integrity, and calling them socialists, and calling Obama socialist. He's somewhat to the right of Malcolm Fraser, who doesn't look bad right now.
One more question. Yes.
So we're talking about change and saying that maybe the best possible way for change is to start with young people. How do we as teachers advocate that change, or introducing the ideas that we've talked about in systems that don't allow us to, or systems that don't allow us to have that discussion in school?
I have to need help again.
Sorry.
No, that's okay. I think I heard that. How do we, as teachers, encourage discussions amongst young people in systems that actively discourage that discussion? Is that a reasonable?
Yeah, or,
hold on.
or the curriculum that doesn't allow for that type of discussion.
Or curriculum that doesn't allow that discussion?
The only way I know how to do it is do it. And I try to work out, I mean, I have worked out some relationships with some principals and teachers. And the principal comes in and he knows I'm going to be talking to the students about democracy, but he always says to me, remember, Art, we've got to keep up the test scores. So what we do is I say we'll steal some time. And as long as the test score stays up, he's happy. But it's going to take courage. If we want to be able to actually have this society survive, it's going to take some courage. You don't go in there stupidly. You make sure you have support of other teachers. You have a retreat strategy. Humor's always good here too, by the way. But you just can't allow nothing to happen. And if it's only a little bit, then you start with a little bit. But you do something.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Well, thank you so much. Firstly, if I could thank you, Lee, for such a wonderful introduction to art. I did a back of the envelope calculation, and there are 2 birthdays. I think you're 43rd, as well as Art's 90th. So thank you to Lynn for introducing Art, and thank you, Art, for coming and agreeing to talk with us. And
Well, it is a delight to see Lynn for how many years now. It's great to see you. You look wonderful. And even longer for you. And Jim.
So, and also, it's just wonderful to have an excuse to bring old friends and younger friends together in one place to have serious discussions. So thank you.
Thank you.